Julie Rivera is absent. John Foreman
Present.
here. Jill Murr is absent. David Austin.
Present. In the moment of silence, Jill Murr lost her father last Friday night, so I did not reflect on that. He's a good man. Grew up, raised Jill and her sisters over here in Crete, just off of Exchange. So she'll be out of the office for a couple of days. I think there's a memorial service Thursday or Wednesday of this week
Yeah.
in Dyer.
Thursday? is it?
Visitation tomorrow.
Visitations, yeah.
Visitation tomorrow, 3 to 8.
That's correct. So if you want to spread the word or what have you, we'd appreciate that. So the first item, we're going to move that to the next meeting, the oath of office. Public comment. Does anybody have any public comment on agenda items, please? Public comment, agenda items, going once, twice. Very good. We're going to move into consent agenda. Starting with the consent agenda, item number 2, claims, all town funds, $100,643.84. Wastewater operating, $157,804.01. Water utility, $18,070.46. 6 cents. Stormwater, $13,715.65. 2017 RDA B and C construction, $7,670.16. Payroll, February 21st, 2019, and March 1, 2019, $175,333.12. In addition, we had some donations, Midwest Training and Ice Center, in-kind donation of $4 off pizza coupon and half off skate passes, Crown Point Community Foundation of $3,825 for 8 EO tech sites. Item number 4, town grounds use and waiver request, Cedar Lake Eagles / Make-A-Wish Car Show, September 22nd, 2019. And Gary Shakespeare Community IU Northwest, July 26th, 2019. Do I have a motion to accept and waive the reading of the minutes and accept the consent agenda as listed above?
So moved.
Motion by Rick Sharp, second.
I'll second it.
And we have a second by Ralph Miller. Roll call, please.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I think it's on page 2 of the claims, Dana Electric, service call to repair building lights at a cost of $3,477.29. What building was that for? Oh, maybe it's Dwayne.
Yeah, that would be fire station.
Fire station? What kind of lights? Just,
All the outside lights required to be replaced.
all right.
Fixtures and fittings, fixtures,
All right, and then,
Did you inspect that, Tim? Do they fit the criteria for the town lighting ordinance?
I think there's 2 in the front main end.
Are you serious? Well, you know I'm gonna hear about it.
I don't.
and then the one directly below that is an upgrade, repaired speakers, amp system. What is that in here?
That was also the fire station. Their chief could describe more on the minor electronics
Speaker system
claim.
and amps.
The 800 megahertz radio system that we currently are operating on with the state blew out our speakers in the station.
Oh, okay.
So we had to replace all the speakers within the station. Power level was based on a VHF system, not a UHF system.
Okay, that's the only 2 that caught my eyes in all the claims.
Very good. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Ordinance and resolutions, ordinance number 1320, traffic speed limit. I believe this will need two readings, and this had to do with the speed limit on Lakeshore Drive in Klein. I think this is just paperwork catching up to the signage that's out there. Mr. Niemeyer, would you please read ordinance 1320, please?
Ordinance 1320, an ordinance amending town traffic rules pertaining to speed limits as codified in Town Code 71.12, as amended, repealing all ordinances and town code provisions or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
Thank you.
I believe this is a reduction, Chief, of 25 miles an hour from 147th to 145th on Lake Shore.
It's just catching up with the sign.
Okay, we have a reading. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ralph,
Second.
second by Rick. Roll call, please.
Mr. President,
And that was a motion to approve, naturally.
Yes.
first reading, right. Record should reflect this is a staff-prepared ordinance.
Very good. Thank you. Make that for the record, please.
So noted.
Ready when you are with roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes,
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow for second reading.
Very good.
I'll second it.
We have a first and a second for a second reading. for
Who
ordinance
made
number
the second?
13. Ralph?
All right, I have a question. Since our legal said this was prepared by staff and under our code, it's supposed to be looked over by our attorney. So should we let this go back to him before we do a second reading?
Mr. President, I'm not suggesting that. I just want the record to be clear who's preparing ordinances.
Yeah, but you're supposed to according to our zoning, right?
Been in the town code a long time, but I'm here to work with you, not against you. Just want the record to be clear.
In defense of the ordinance, and I understand your concern, Bob, this was an action that was taken a while ago and the signs have already been put up. So I don't know what could possibly be contained in this that would be construed as something controversial. I mean, it's,
I'm not here to suggest that either, Randy.
doesn't seem to me like there's anything here other than common sense.
All
So
right.
that's just my opinion on it, Bob.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second on the table for a second reading.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
No.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 5-1.
Second reading of ordinance 1320 is an ordinance amending town traffic rules pertaining to speed limits as codified in Town Code 71.12 as amended, repealing all ordinances and town code provisions or parts thereof in conflict herewith and all matters related thereto.
Thank you. Okay, we've had the second reading. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Rick Sharp. Second,
Second.
Randy Niemeyer has a second on the table. Roll call vote.
One
please.
thing, comment.
Yes, sir.
I don't know who worked on this ordinance. Chief, did you work on it?
I believe it was Jill, I would assume.
Okay, so for the record, let's make note that when these things happen in the future, no matter how ministerial they might seem, they do need some legal review. Not saying our staff doesn't have capability to put together common sense documents, but at least have a set of legal eyes on it to make sure there's no ambiguity in ordinances would be pertinent. Thank you.
Makes sense. Roll call when you're ready, Jen.
Robert Carnahan,
No.
Greg Parker,
No.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 4-2. Thank you. Ordinance number 1322, Park and Recreation Fee Amendment.
Ordinance 1322 is an ordinance amending town parks and recreation activities fee ordinance number 1242, being an ordinance amending town parks and recreation activities fee ordinance number 955, being an ordinance establishing an activities fee schedule for the town Department of Parks and Recreation and all matters related thereto, repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and all matters related thereto, repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and all matters related thereto.
Very good. In short, Jill had mentioned that this was to, if you look at section 1, it's for a field trip not to exceed $125 per person. For example, if she has a Cubs trip planned July 12th, not saying that it's going to be anywhere near that. She just wanted to put something in there that was a not to exceed number. So do we have a motion for ordinance number 1322?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ralph Miller,
Second.
and we have a second by Rick Sharp.
Question,
Yes, sir.
Dave, did you review this one?
I did review this with Jill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules, allow for second reading.
Very good. Motion to suspend the rules for a second meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Randy, would you please read ordinance number 1322 into the record for the second reading, please?
Ordinance 1322, an ordinance amending town parks and recreation activities fee ordinance number 1242, being an ordinance amending town parks and recreation activities fee ordinance number 955, being an ordinance establishing an activities fee schedule for the town Department of Parks and Recreation and all matters related thereto, repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and all matters related thereto, repealing all town code sections and ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and all matters related thereto.
Very good. We've got a second reading on the table. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 1322.
Motion to adopt by Randy,
I'll second it.
and we have a second by Ralph. Roll call when you're ready.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Item number 3, ordinance number 1323, CCDF reestablishment. Randy, would you please read ordinance 1323?
Ordinance 1323, an ordinance reestablishing and continuing a cumulative capital development fund, CCDF, for the town of Cedar Lake, Lake County, Indiana, and all matters related thereto.
Mr. Austin, did you want to make a comment on this?
Yes, thank you, John. This is the ordinance that you and I talked about last week that needed to be considered if you wanted to continue the CCDF fund at its 5 cents per $100 assessed value levy. And there's a short window of time that this was needed to be considered. That's why I suggested it be an agenda item tonight. This is an introductory reading, a public hearing. If you approve this tonight and direct it to proceed, will be advertised for 2 weeks from tonight so that this could be considered. Once the ordinance is adopted, if adopted, notice of adoption would be published and the taxpayers have 30 days to object and file the appropriate remonstrance. This is a fund that's used for generally public safety and or public works projects.
Very good, thank you.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve this ordinance for a maximum rate levy not to exceed 5 cents per $100 of assessed value payable in 2020.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by,
I have a question, Mr. President.
yes, sir.
What are we planning on using the money for, the funds? Do we know?
You know, I think in the past,
I'm not asking about the past, I'm asking about what we're planning. on
no,
using
do
the
you
money
have a suggestion?
Actually, we do have I know that we've had a capital plan here in place for quite a while. And that's part of CCD. Monies have been utilized in capital planning, which includes capital expenditures in public safety and public works, as well as any capital projects that the town may take on for building or grounds or whatever. So there is a capital plan that I believe we adopted last year.
But nothing specific for what these funds would be captured for?
It's all part of a larger capital plan. It's not like this amount of money is going to be exactly for this, but there's price tags next to each part of that capital plan of estimated price tags.
Do you have any ideas, though, Greg? What you'd like to see it? Go to?
A number of ideas. There's a lot of reconstruction projects still need to be done.
But if it's cumulative capital, I'm not sure that,
That's something that's
it
capital
qualifies.
expenditure in nature.
Can it be used for equipment to get some of that stuff done?
It could.
Yep.
It could. There's a laundry list in the statute, Indiana Code 36-9-15.5. I've cited in section 5 of this ordinance, the traditional and usually considered uses, public works, notably construct streets, sidewalks, alleys, thoroughfares, et cetera, maintain same. That's one use. And second, to purchase, lease, or pay all or part of the purchase price of motor vehicles for the use of police and fire departments, including ambulance firefighting vehicles with necessary equipment. And it's been my understanding that you've used the funds typically in those areas.
Fair enough.
So let's say if he decided to vote no, then it would have to come back for a second reading at another meeting. And then possibly a list could be brought back so he could see what is available to spend that money on.
sounds like his second reading wouldn't be allowed tonight anyway due to the fact that it has to have.
There won't be adopted. I would
Right.
not advise that it hasn't been noticed for the public hearing.
Correct.
Right, it's got to just be one reading tonight and then a public hearing 2 weeks from
Okay.
now.
I just feel like that if we're gonna recapture funds, we should know what they're gonna be for specifically.
Yeah, I
Good.
think circulating that capital list would be a good idea. I don't think anybody's laid eyes on it in over a year, so I think it's a good thing.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please? We have a motion and a second on the table for the
Who
ordinance.
seconded that?
Randy,
I did?
you seconded it.
Okay, I couldn't remember that. I seconded it.
Bob made the motion.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
I need to get some sleep.
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes,
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Moving into new business, town use request. A wedding on May 25th. This can be located pages 12 to 13. It was a handwritten letter to the council. In short, they want to have a wedding here. They wanted to have alcohol at an event, at this event with a bartender. And they said they would need permission since alcohol would be on the town grounds. It's their intention to also serve food. They've contacted a bartender with Indiana permit to serve alcohol. It would be cordoned off in the pavilion located behind the police department town building. And soft drinks and water would also be located in another area for persons under age 21. The request is coming by Lisa Zykowski, 8731 Havenwood Pass, Cedar Lake, Indiana, 46303. She says, thank you for your consideration. If there are any policies and or intentions of ours that would restrict us from holding this event at this location, we ask that we be given an opportunity to resubmit our request with any changes that would be necessary.
I didn't hear anything about security.
Well, that's why I was going to make a motion to approve this contingent upon the submitting of proof of the necessary security being hired to serve alcohol
And insurance.
and insurance. Well, I don't know if they'd insure an event like that.
Yeah, but we've got to be insured
Right.
on the town because anybody else that comes
True.
in here, we require proof of insurance.
I concur with that, Bob.
Mr. President, Mr. Austin, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think that the two items just added.
Yeah, security and insurance are the contingencies, so that's my motion.
Okay, we have motion on the table, town use request,
I'll second it.
and we have a second.
That
Roll
was
call
Ralph.
when you get a chance, please.
Was that Ralph?
Yeah,
It was.
Ralph just
I'm
sounds
sorry.
like Barry White tonight.
Ralph and Rich sound a lot from here.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes,
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item number 2, Chamber of Commerce request, Northwest Indiana Symphony, July 20th, 2019. I'd just like to note that this request also includes fireworks and assistance from the fire department.
That's provided they raise enough money to have that,
Is that right?
right? If they don't raise enough money for the fireworks, they have canceled it in the past.
I see.
again, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Chamber of Commerce request for the use of the town grounds in July 2019.
We have a motion by Randy,
Second.
second by Rick Sharp. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer.
Yes,
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. So you're not going to write a check if they don't have enough money, Bob?
No.
Okay.
If I had that kind of money, the food pantry would be getting it.
Okay, there you go. Item number 3, Fire Department Training Reimbursement Agreement. Firefighter EMT Bradley Beagle and firefighter paramedic Michael Siliski. I suppose since we didn't swear these gentlemen in, that this also gets deferred. Would that be a true statement or not?
I do not believe so. I believe you can go ahead and vote on the agreement.
You're making an agreement with folks that you haven't employed yet.
Yeah.
Well, they are
Chief.
currently part-timers
Yeah,
though.
they're currently working part-time.
Are they?
So their person comes back from the state. And they were always on our part-time, they were on our part-time list anyways. but They're technically not full-time employees yet.
Are you training them?
Excuse me?
Are you training them?
No, we are not.
So why do we
Not
need,
yet.
why do we need the training reimbursement agreement if they're part-time and we're not training them?
Because we're gonna hire them full-time once their 77 fund comes back. And this is a requirement now that the council wanted in place, where if they leave, they reimburse the department.
Oh, I understand that. So when you bring them in here and they're sworn as full-time firefighters, that's when they become full-time firefighters. And they can become trained. You send them for the training.
Right.
So it's,
It's a training and equipment agreement, not just the training.
I don't know what it is.
We already do have an investment in them because we started the process of hiring them. We're just waiting for their proof to come back, so we have to get them here, all kinds of stuff.
It's your call, John.
Okay. My initial thoughts were we would wait, defer this until we hired them, but after Chief's explanation, if somebody would like to make a motion to move forward with this fire department training reimbursement agreement.
I want to make a motion to defer it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to defer this to the next meeting.
I'll second that just
Okay.
for his motion to go through.
Motion deferred by Greg, second by Bob. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
no,
Richard Sharp,
No.
John Foreman.
No.
Clerk can break this tie.
If you want to, you don't have to.
So
Come on,
soon.
Jen. No
So soon.
glory, Jen.
Step in now. This is part of the fun.
I was gonna say, I'll vote yes to defer.
Okay, motion has been deferred to the next meeting. Thank you.
See, that wasn't so hard, was it? Nobody threw anything at you.
I'm just happy it was like a training agreement and not something like 10 times worse. No way, shape, or
I
form
like it.
wanted to vote on.
Development, item number 4, development services agreement, Veritas. I believe the RDC engaged Veritas for the development of the TIF expenditure policy to weight the various projects according to criterias. Randy, you sit on the RDC.
So at the last meeting,
comment on
Marlon from Veritas came. The RDC is working on a TIF expenditure policy. We have a large request in front of us from Summer Winds Commercial, which has been delayed on acting on that request pending the development of a comprehensive TIF expenditure policy.
Okay.
To make sure that we are measuring everything we do on a objective manner rather than subjective, and we're not setting precedent by approving or disapproving certain uses. So that's what this basically is that agreement that the RDC wants to finance and enter into. So it would need the council support to move forward.
Very good.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
didn't we spend some money with Veritas a while back and we really didn't get any use out of that expenditure?
I do believe that we did do a couple of projects where we used them, did some strategic planning and that sort of thing. This, I think, is a little bit different due to the fact it's through the RDC and
Actually, I'm looking for a little refund money is what I'm.
they've been engaged on it.
So we spent around 20,000 with them on our original agreement on the visioning and things that we did here over several meetings. This is something totally different. It's a TIF expenditure policy, which we currently don't have in place. We've only utilized TIF monies for infrastructure to this point. And without a TIF expenditure policy, we can't really consider any sort of other investments of TIF monies without that.
Is Veritas the only one that does this kind of thing, or is there someone, is someone else?
There's multiple groups that do it. Veritas was brought to the table because we've worked with them in the past. And their price was pretty reasonable on it, which I believe was, it was going to be an estimated $6,500 on this one as far as putting together this TIF expenditure policy. I know Cherville utilized the ARSH group, and there's been several other groups around, but Veritas was something that the RDC was comfortable with working with because of our history with them and the synergy that surrounds that as far as the understanding of our comprehensive master plan, where the community's going.
Very good. Does that answer your question, Mr. Parker?
Kind of.
Anybody else have any comments or questions regarding the development service agreement? I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the development services agreement.
We have a motion on the table for approval by Randy Niemeyer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Rick Sharp. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Based on some of the questions that Greg just asked, I'd like to have tried a different company, so my vote is no.
Greg Parker,
No.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 4-2. Item number 5, Parish Avenue change order. Mr. Simstad is in the audience. We'll ask Neil to present on this and maybe give a brief synopsis of what this is in regards to.
Yeah, we have the final change order for closing out Parish Avenue and the final pay request as well. The total contract amount is $1,167,478.59. And the final change order for this project, which is change order number 3, is a reduction in the contract amount of $62,604.03.
62,000 what?
604.03.
604.
So the next step after closing out the project will be working with INDOT to close out the community crossings grant that we received for this project. And I'll work with Jen and Bill to get those documents prepared. We'll need a signature by the council president, and then that'll allow you to submit for the 2019 second phase of community crossings, which will, I believe, start in July.
Very
We'll
good.
need some canceled checks and I'll, close that document and those kind of things.
And we can't file for another community crossing until we get this closed out.
Absolutely correct. And you have an asset management plan that's been completed, phase rating that's been accepted by LTAP.
Correct.
and approved.
That's right.
When are you gonna be done?
We're done.
No, with the documentation.
As
Close out.
soon as we get the approval for the final change order close out and we receive the canceled check for the contractor, we'll submit the documents.
2 weeks, 30 days?
I don't know how quick you get those canceled checks back, Jen, but I would imagine in a couple weeks. We'll have our documents prepared, waiting for those checks back from the contractor.
So we received that final pay request, so if you guys approve it tonight, then we can get the ball rolling on that to get that payment made.
And
Very
and to answer your question, David, I would imagine if we call the contractor and say we have a check for $150,444.37, they'll have someone pick it up.
You think?
I would imagine.
All right.
Make a motion to approve the change order on Parish Avenue.
Motion by Bob Carnahan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And we have a second by Ralph. Before we go into roll call, I have one question.
Yeah.
Heading south on Parish, you come up to the stop sign before 141st. I believe that is not a part of this. However, the asphalt has kind of sank
Yeah, we did
A large-
some
about the length of a bus or something. It just kind of dropped 2-3 inches. Were you involved in that?
Yeah, that was a project that was done in 2015 into 2016.
Is that where we had that real soft soil and we kept filling? And
That was one of the areas. Yeah,
Okay.
Essentially the entire east lane of the traffic the west area going southbound
Right.
was spongy at best.
Right.
And that was one of the areas that we did do some remedial measures on that they don't appear to have held up as well as the other areas.
anything we can do from an insurance standpoint or a claim to
No,
the
not
engineering
at
company
this point.
or asphalt company?
No, but what we did look at is a value engineering on that area, and we put the best options forward in terms of undercutting, geogrid, additional stone, and most of the areas held it very well. And
Right.
Tim can probably attest the areas on 141st on the north side of the road. We had areas where you could, drop a pencil in and it would disappear. And we ended up with, that area that's not the best, but given the other areas that we had that were worse, that held up much better, it was,
Okay.
I'll say somewhat disappointing for sure.
Yeah. I know it's not related to this change order. I just thought I'd ask while you're standing here.
Yeah, it's not unfortunately, but
Okay.
it is the same contractor, but, separate contractors.
Very good. Okay, we have a motion from Bob and a second from Ralph on the table for the Parish Avenue change order. May we please have roll call?
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
And
Thank you, Neil.
And we
Once-
will,
once we get this cleared out, then we can go out and try and capture at least $1 million for a future project.
absolutely. And we'll get work on the closeout documents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Okay, reports, town council. Does anybody have a report that they'd like to comment on?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I was had a conversation with Becky Gilbert this afternoon, and she would like, for the record, a status report on any expansion for getting the flooding taken care of at Wicker Meadows.
Very good. I would say we'll document that, and with Julie not being here and also Jill, we'll get an update on that subject at the next meeting.
Yeah, Becky also left a message for me as well and asked for the same thing.
Okay.
She's trying to get a status update on it, some real information, and to see where we're going to go with this thing. I know we've run into some snags, but there's some conversations going on with some folks in Lake County to see what we can do to work together to help mitigate this.
Correct.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the council what we're gonna do about Moore Street.
Uh,
Make a plan to reconstruct Moore Street, or at least get it on the books, or,
I have a proposal, Greg.
okay,
I would like, it's not gonna cost us any money, but let's get a proposal to heat scarify everything from the fire station all the way down to 149th. Let's do Fairbanks again, and let's do Lamar, not Lamar, Larman. We did all that when we did it the last time, and I'm told we can still heat scarify, and then we put a top coat on, and that cost us about $800,000. I'd like to get a quote on that, and with the potential of using some of our garbage escrow money to help pay for it. But let's get a quote on it first.
So can I comment on that a little bit? At the last RDC meeting, that was actually put on the table as part of TIF expenditure policies as well. It was brought up that Moore Street needs to be considered and those other things tied to it, because most of that sits in our TIF district. That is something that we could utilize some TIF funds for as well. So I would agree with Bob that we need to get some information in hand here so we know how to tackle it, because it's falling apart quickly.
And I believe the bid policy is $150,000, so we'd have to go out for bid, correct, Dave?
That's right.
And I don't know if there's any other companies that do heat scarification other than Gallagher?
I'm sure there are, Bob.
Okay.
I'm sure there, it's a matter of soliciting bids.
So who would we want to put together an estimate of probable cost for a project of that scope, Bob?
Well, we probably asked Jill to direct.
Would we utilize
Don
our
Oliphant.
in-house town engineering services as a way to at least put together a scope before we
Specs?
decide whether or not we're going to set it out for engineering and construction bids?
Well, basically, what I watched them do was they just, Wash and Kelly came in and put 2 foot of additional width on both sides of Lake Shore Drive and Morse. And then they heat scarified it, and then they had to come wash.
Yeah, but we
Kelly.
need a scope of work to
Oh.
get the ball rolling from an engineering standpoint
Well-
and then RFQ package, what have you. That's what I
Hopefully
think he's
We could go
asking.
back to our,
Prior,
when we did it the last time and see what that said, and maybe we could just resubmit.
is it okay if I ask Jill to look into
Yes.
how we handled that last time and
Yes.
pursue the same
I don't think Bob.
possible way and then give us an update at the next meeting? Okay.
I don't
Can we
think
do
Bob's
that?
proposal is bad, but I guess, if we can't do anything else, that's the logical thing to do. But does anybody think that Moore Street's gonna need to be wider in the next decade or so?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Craig. I think that looking at that as a possible 3-lane venue is something that at least could be considered as looking at, if we're looking at full scope here, Bob,
Yeah.
as maybe looking at that stretch of Morse from the Tasty Top down to 133rd is a possible.
I think you need to go to 149.
That's possible too.
And then I would say that we'd probably be better dealing with the RDC.
But what I was looking
TIF
at was
money.
from a TIF
Yeah,
standpoint, I think the TIF ends there at 145th.
It does.
yes.
So that's why I cut it off there, is if we're going to do that as a part of a TIF project, then that would need to stay in that TIF district. So I think that's worth looking into, and I think the RDC would like to have that conversation based on what I've seen at the last couple meetings.
If things continue to go like they're going, it seems like that would be one of the projects that would need a little forward think. I mean, if patching it up makes it last another 10 or 12 years, or heat scarifying, I should have said patching it up. Heat scarifying it.
Give
makes last
give
another
them 10
12
years.
Well, I guess that's cool. But somebody still needs to think forward on what we're gonna have with the mass exodus of the land of Lincoln that is gonna continue to happen here.
Good point. Thank you.
And I would add other conversation to this is that on US 41, they're going to put a center lane in from 231 down to 133rd. And that it's supposed to be in place for 2022, but Jill just told me that means it will start in 2021.
Correct.
So that I know there's been a lot of businesses on 41 that would like a turning lane there. And I know the chief has given us a lot of, police has given us a lot of wrecks that have occurred up there on 41. And so we're trying to get a stop light at 129th and 41, and we haven't got any movement on that. And I appreciate your help on that.
Okay, very good. Anybody else on the council?
I have several reports.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to talk about a call that Mr. Austin and I had with representatives from AIM, Jody Woods, and who was the attorney? Brian,
Ryan,
can't remember his last name.
I think it was Ryan. His last name was Ryan. Paul Ryan?
They got another attorney, Jody.
There were two people on the call from AIM. Well, what we did was we
He's a
discussed,
legislative assistant, Bob,
Okay, so it wasn't another
on the
attorney.
lobby side.
Yeah, okay.
we discussed, I had a list of about 11 bills that I'd sent over to them that were concerning to me from a municipal government standpoint. We focused in on 4 bills in particular. Senate Bill 472, which deals with water utility acquisitions by private firms. Senate Bill 477, which deals with stormwater fee structures. Senate Bill 556, which was an annexation bill. And House Bill 1596, which was a TIF expenditure bill. So I'll start with House Bill 1596. In 1596, they're looking to change the language of TIF expenditure to exclude expenditure on partnerships with school corporations for scholarships. In Jeffersonville, this came up where a redevelopment commission agreed to go in with the Jeffersonville School Corporation and provide some scholarships for kids to attend Ivy Tech. Sounds pretty sensible, right? Well, there's a senator down in southern Indiana that didn't like that. So now he's going to legislate the whole state, or a representative in southern Indiana didn't like this. So now they're going to legislate the whole state based on that. And then they started including in other language and made a very broad bill that included streetscape projects and other projects that we currently use TIF monies for. AIM is working hard to change the language of some of it. It passed the House. It's now got a sponsor in the Senate. So it's moving forward, but AIM is keeping track of the language to make sure that they can move out the language that's harmful to municipalities. But I think it's a shame that somebody would even want to legislate out the use of TIF monies for a partnership with a school corporation. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Would have the
Defeats the
same
purpose of what
bill
it is.
number in the Senate?
No, I'm not sure of the Senate bill number, Bob. I'd have to look that up, and I don't want to hold this meeting up forever. So I could probably find that for you relatively easy. But that was 1596 in the House, if you want to look that up.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Okay.
Is there anything that can be done about it other than what AIM is doing?
I've sent,
Email your.
I was actually
state rep.
texting Mike Aylesworth as they were discussing it in caucus, and he voted against it. It passed on a 55-41 vote in the House. The Senate will probably stamp that thing.
Yeah.
What's the logic on their behalf?
It's one representative's beef with a school corporation. So the more I'm kind of diving into some of this legislative stuff, the more I'm discovering a lot of the legislation that deals with local issues are personal issues of individual legislators. So what we're doing is we're electing people to represent the broad interest of the state in Indianapolis. They're getting into office and then utilizing their pulpit as a way to settle personal scores. So that's kind of how this is all coming about. It's a shame, but that's what's happening. I mean, I think we see it in many levels of government. Senate Bill 556 was another annexation bill, and this has been beaten to death. This one, though, would take even a voluntary annexation, that anything over 5% of the assessed value of the total assessed value of the community. If you have a voluntary annexation that's more than that, the commissioners then have to check off on it, the county commissioners, which to me just
For what
totally
reason?
disenfranchises local
Municipality government.
municipal government. So it disenfranchises all the voters in the town too. The reason for this one, I found out, is the author of this had a beef with the city of Kokomo with an annexation that Greg Goodnight led, and a voluntary annexation that added significantly to the assessed value of the town and took away from some of the assessed value of the county. And this particular senator didn't like that and doesn't like Greg Goodnight, so decided to legislate the entire state based on that beef.
I was gonna make a suggestion, maybe we give some of these guys a pair of dueling pistols, but I realized then that would probably be breaking an ordinance somewhere.
Greg, I'm telling you, I wish I was making this stuff up, but it's really that ridiculous in Indianapolis right now. They must have nothing else to do other than to figure out ways to settle scores.
Well, the state's not in debt, so they have to think of something to do.
Senate Bill 477 was a bill relating to stormwater fee structures. This bill has kind of lost some steam for now. It's been referred back to committees. It's not moving forward on a legislative docket right now, but it's a bill that we got to keep an eye on, and that AIM is actually keeping an eye on. Because what it would do is exempt churches and school corporations from having to pay stormwater fees of a municipality. I don't think what's being considered here is the revenue streams that are already developed for communities like ours and others around the state that depend on those revenue streams to pay debt service on bonds.
By the way, it was their idea to begin with.
The state of Indiana? No, it's the federal government MS4 requirements.
But it was their idea not to fund it.
Right. But it's one of those things that's really important for us to keep an eye on, because if it is a law change that exempts those entities from paying stormwater fees, it would have a very negative impact on our revenue streams to pay our current debt service obligations on bonds that we floated. Senate Bill 472 was a bill that has passed the Senate quite easily, relating to water utility acquisitions. The way Dave and I kind of read this bill, and this was one that's not on AIM's radar, and I still don't think it is. It looks to me like, with the definition changes of what a distressed unit is, it's any unit under 5,000 customers, which is Cedar Lake. And if you have any certain criteria, which are pretty broad, that you can't meet at any given time, a private entity like Indiana American can petition the IURC to buy your utility from you.
Let me ask you a question, and I'll bet you have the answer to this. I'm just guessing. How much, you say it was Indiana American Water?
Well, it's just one example of a private entity that could buy a utility or petition.
Who was the author of this particular item?
I believe that was Senator Sandlin, but the co-authors were Ed Charbonneau in the Senate, and now that it's moved to the House, one of the sponsors is Ed Soliday.
You getting any campaign funding from water companies?
I'm sure that Indiana American has PACs that they support, and I don't know how you would track some of that money, but my guess is there's
I bet
always
if
a
you had some
connection.
time on your hands, it'd be easier than you think to track it.
I don't have that kind of time to be a private investigator, but
Nor do I, but
what,
when you see something like that, though, it's definitely, it has to be related to campaign finance, right?
that was
Why else would you do that?
That was my comments to the folks at AIM, was that I was really concerned with how this bill is moving, how it's written, that if we have a slight glitch in our system at some point, and we have a piece of infrastructure fail, which can happen, it's not because we have a terrible system, it's just because infrastructure fails from time to time. That could meet the criteria to where a private entity could petition the IURC to take over a small utility like ours. Now, they'd have to pay us for it, whatever the appraised value is. But we saw how this went down in Lake Station with appraisals of their water utility as a distressed unit. And it hasn't been pretty. So to me, this bill here is setting up a utility monopoly in the state of Indiana for Indiana American. Indiana American has petitioned the IURC in a number of communities around the state for pretty substantial rate increases, Cherville being one of them. And in most cases, they've succeeded. But in certain cases where there are distressed units and people that are holding on to their local control, Indiana American has chosen the path of working with their legislators that they work with to legislate this rather than negotiate it in court, because they're not doing as well in court as what they can do in the legislature.
So that corporation has elected some legislators to operate on their behalf?
Well, there's a lot of corporations
Called
that have
lobbyists.
legislators and lobbyists and people that they work with hand in hand.
That's the word I was looking for.
Right.
lobbyists.
So that's what we're seeing with those 4 bills. There were other ones we're watching. One of them is a House bill, and I can't remember the number right offhand, that has to do with the membership of redevelopment commissions.
766.
Was 1166. And that one there would have school corporations have voting members on redevelopment commissions, which again is, it's an overreach. Town councils don't have voting rights on school boards. They're both bodies elected duly. Redevelopment commissions appointed by the elected body of the town. So those are things, again, that we're keeping an eye on, and AIM is keeping an eye on. But they are working to modify language wherever they can. It's just some of these bills, unfortunately, go through our party in Indianapolis, and it's a rubber stamp. And it's just more and more reach into local government. Another item to report on is a utility ordinance, a utility board ordinance, I should say. Several meetings ago, I proposed the creation of a functional utility board here that would be made up of the town council members. Since we serve in that role currently, our town attorney has sent you and I and Jill over a draft of that. Essentially, what that does is spell out the terms in which that would be created, how it matches up with our comprehensive master plan, what the duties and functions of that board would be. And I'd like the town attorney to have that draft ready for council consideration for first reading for next meeting.
Very good.
There's a lot of work to do with something like that in setting it up. It's not as easy as just 2 readings and poof, we're done. Because there is a lot of function to this that needs to be kind of separated out, and reporting of certain people to and through that board to make sure that we're operating it properly and directing traffic the right way, and we have all of our people moving. Dave, can you add some to that?
Yeah, there's a clear path in the statute on how you can do this. That's the path I followed in drafting. You'll see that it clearly segregates out oversight and management, administrative management of the utilities in a distinct fashion. And if you elect as a municipal legislative body to adopt, you would serve in both roles, but with different functions, distinct different functions.
Also, another report I have is myself and Councilman Carnahan attended the Hanover School Board Public Forum on the upcoming referendum. Cedar Lake does not have a primary, but there still will be in Hanover Township a vote on the same day as the primary for only referendum purposes. It was a pretty good presentation. I felt they provided a lot of really useful information. The design seems pretty sensible. There were some questions raised about town building permit fees, and I responded to those that we do have a policy in place that provides graduated discounts based on the size of a project. I think one of the misnomers, though, that comes out of some of that, the town of Cedar Lake, from what I know, is the only community that even does any sort of discounting of fees for
That's right.
school projects, library projects, whatever. So our policy here is pretty liberal. People are very concerned about growth, of course. One of the things that always kind of amazes me is that some of the people that are concerned about growth are people that moved here. And it's like after their house is built, the community is supposed to put a stop sign out. And also I look at the alternative to growth as the city of Gary, a once proud public school system, now is a shell. There's nothing left. I always like the problem of growth better than I do the problem of recession. Growth presents challenges, yes, but as we grow more, the impact of these sorts of referendums is less per person as more people come into the fold. So there's benefits to it. I feel like the Hanover Community School Corporation and Crown Point Community School Corporations have both benefited greatly from the increase in their enrollments. Both schools are succeeding, high letter grade schools. And the school board and the superintendent and the financial director put together a pretty good presentation. I just hope the next time that we pursue something like a fire territory, that we don't have school board members coming up here and protesting, saying that our kids won't be able to ride a bus. Because neither Bob nor I protested any of the information they had there that night. I would just hope that we would have that same sort of return. There's a lot of misinformation out there about growth, that people are spreading a lot of rumors about what the town is and isn't doing. The fact is, most of the growth to this point has come from the town of St. John, the unincorporated area, and the school zone studies show that. And now that there's a subdivision being built across from the school, it makes it look a little different to where, oh my gosh, there's houses going up from across the school. And yeah, Cedar Lake's in a growth spurt right now, but this is not a bad thing. This is our time to try and move this whole community forward. So,
And go on what you just said there, we're in a growth spurt here, but going up to Zion's Fat Tuesday thing tonight, you look down 117 north of there. That is just loaded with houses, and down 109th, it's just loaded with houses. The Gates of St. John is just loaded with houses. I don't think Cedar Lake's causing a lot of the growth. I think it's more in the St. John area and the Hanover Township area.
right, and their own studies have proven that too. But people like to blame us. We're the big bad wolf. Since the school's located in Cedar Lake, we still have to provide fire and police service for that school, public works service. All the public services that are provided by the town of Cedar Lake are provided to Hanover Community Schools as well.
Correct.
So
Let's
St. John has no skin in that game.
Let's back up for a minute though. You know, why are we having this growth crisis that we're having?
It's the state of Illinois is completely and utterly dysfunctional. I mean, you have people
That's
paying
true.
$10,000 plus a year in property taxes for a home that similar in Cedar Lake would cost them $2,500.
That's the same thing that they had though back in the late 70s, early 80s. They had these big giant growth spurts. And what they failed to do was be thoughtful to the people that funded their services. They weren't thoughtful at all. And now they've created this big giant snowball tax monster that is, instead of addressing it, they have caused an exodus. And that could happen right here too, if there isn't enough thought put into the cost of things going forward. Because, I'll tell you something, nobody's leaving Illinois to come over here and have the same thing happen in 5 years or 10 years. They're leaving Illinois because they're looking for value in what they're getting. And if you create the same monster here, they're not going to be here long, and you could have the same thing that they have there.
I don't disagree with you, Greg. I think there's always a double-edged sword to some of this stuff. But what we saw this year, just in our budgeting, was that for the first time since I've been on the council, we didn't have to borrow from ourselves at the beginning of the year to bump up our cash flows to pay bills. And a good portion of that's because the tax collections are finally catching up to the growth. So the growth has actually helped to spur some of that financial solvency that we've struggled with over the last several years. So part of it's going to be really good planning, good management, and for our plan commission to really work hand in glove with developers like you did with Lennar to make sure that when there are these huge impact developments, there's some skin in the game. And Lennar is putting that forward with $352,000 behind their lots. So let's hope that continues. One other.
I think that is a good example, and I think it needs to be looked at going forward with some type of policy.
What else, Randy?
One other report was I wanted to congratulate the Hanover Central boys basketball team for winning the sectional for the first time since John played on the team in 1986. It was good to see some of the
And
class
Chief
of
Todd.
86 there. All right, Todd, college team in Culver, the defending state champ, who recruit kids from as far as Ontario, Canada, to come and play basketball there. I'll stand on my soapbox on that some other time.
Pretty good leadership academy though, Randy.
I'm
They're
not
not
saying
just
that,
coming there for basketball,
right, but those kids that are playing basketball are coming there for basketball.
per se.
So it
Good
ought to be,
education institution.
it'll be a great opportunity for the
Just
boys
saying.
coming up this Saturday at South Bend, Washington at 10 a.m. Eastern. They play. It's a great opportunity for them to play against an absolutely fantastic team with some great players. So I hope they can go out and really compete hard. But
I'm trying to negotiate with my daughter to go to her state pom-pom tournament in Lafayette, or if she's going to let me go watch
right,
basketball.
so my next announcement was going to be the girls' Poms qualified for state as well in several dances. So my daughter dances in that, and I'll be in West Lafayette on Saturday watching dance instead of basketball. But that's the gig I've bought into over the last 13 years she's been training. So congratulations to those school teams for their accomplishments. Tremendous competitors and great skill. And thank you, Mr. President, for indulging me with this much time on the floor to report on these things.
I'd
Sure,
like to
you
say
bet.
to-
Anyone else?
To John and you, enjoy your weekend together.
Easy. I might be in Mishawaka. Okay, anyone else?
I have,
Yes, sir.
Senate Bill, 314,
Okay,
which would have defunded Lake County Solid Waste was not voted on.
Okay.
It was pulled out of committee, so Lake County Solid Waste will keep their funding.
Good.
Which we share in that funding and grants.
town attorney, do you have anything?
I do, Mr. President. There's a storm drainage project in the Havenwood subdivision that requires 4 temporary drainage easements. The property owners have agreed to provide those. I would ask your consideration tonight of amending the agenda and acting to approve accepting those temporary easements for the drainage work contemplated.
Very good. Could I get a motion to amend the agenda to add the
So moved.
4 drainage easements?
Second.
Motion by Randy, second by Ralph. Roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. And I would entertain a motion to approve it now that we've amended the agenda.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
again, Randy and Rick.
Dave, can you explain where those easements are?
I can. They're in Havenwood, specifically on the property of Pat and Jennifer Conlon, James and Michelle Brown, Eric Johnson, and Amanda Robeson, Robert Toole, and Mr. and Mrs. Robson.
Okay, thanks for clarifying the record, Dave.
Thank you. It's basically an extension of a stormwater drain that we did the same thing for probably about 5 years ago. Alleviate a lot of the water that runs off the hill and floods people's backyards and houses and that sort of thing.
Pat's address on that document?
It is.
How did we get it? He doesn't have any numbers on his house.
Well,
Now, he got a ticket and he put him on.
sounds
Oh,
like an enforcement issue.
Okay, so roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
One more item, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
This pertains to property at 12728 Woodland Avenue, where a new home has been built and is awaiting occupancy, I think, subject to the execution of an easement to the town related to our lift station 13 facility. I would request your consideration of amending the agenda to act on this tonight and approve an acceptance.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Randy, second by Ralph. Roll call?
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes. Motion carries. And this is do we have a motion then it's to accept the,
To accept an easement from the property owners who are willing to give it to us and are actually kind of awaiting this document, as I'm told.
For the record, Dave, who are the property owners?
Jason and Karen Miller.
And that is,
Thank you.
so we can have our lift station on our own property?
Well,
You have access to it.
yeah, we have access to it.
Access, we don't own the property.
No, we have rights of entry to it with the easement, Bob. The property will still be owned by the property owners who are conveying the easement rights to us.
And so they're gonna pay taxes on it?
I doubt it, but
No? Okay.
Just a small.
small sliver, 20 by 30. It wasn't very much, right?
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept.
Who made the motion?
Or may I have a motion and a second to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Randy and Rick, roll call, please.
Robert Carnahan,
Yes.
Greg Parker,
Yes.
Ralph Miller,
Yes.
Randall Niemeyer,
Yes.
Richard Sharp,
Yes.
John Foreman.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Is that all, Mr. Attorney? Okay, thank you very much. Clerk Treasurer, do you have anything?
Next week, I will be attending the Indiana League of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Institute and Academy down in Muncie. 4 days, 4.5 days of classes. This will gain me points towards achieving my Indiana Accredited Municipal Clerk designation. I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship to attend.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations.
Very good.
What sorts of things can you glean from that sort of seminar?
I like attending because not only do they have, sometimes they have basic courses like a writing workshop, which is what they'll be having this time. And so
Riding like riding horses or riding?
writing. Um,
I don't know. I know clerks had to learn how to ride horses.
But the instructor of the course has actually taken the time to email all of us attending that course and ask for, a sample of your writing so we can kind of go through it together and,
Good.
What's
where we need
what's
to
that
sharpen it
useful
up.
for?
I mean, we're constantly in communication with people. If
I'm just
You can't-
asking questions.
Good.
Writing ordinances.
I want to know what you're going to be doing there.
Staff ordinances.
Resolutions and those types of things?
probably
Okay.
And networking.
networking, that I was gonna say, that's my second one. It's a great opportunity to network with seasoned clerk treasurers and
Good.
usually State Board of Accounts has representatives there. So if you have any sort of questions, comments, concerns, you can hit them up for anything.
How'd you get the scholarship?
I applied for it.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Chief Todd, Chief Dave, you guys have anything? No? Todd, you sure you don't have anything? It was a pretty busy weekend, I heard. Okay, thank you. And Town Administrator just left the Christopher Burke Engineering Report. We all have that. She asked I touch down on it. A lot of it's the same as in the past. They're moving along with the Highland subdivision, High Grove Phase 2. And there's quite a few things on the Plan Commission that are listed within the report. Birchwood, Summer Winds, Lennar, 139th Morris, et cetera. So
Hey, John, can I add one thing to that real
You-
quick that's pertaining to that report?
you may.
I spoke with Tony Ferraro, who's the regional director from U.S. Senator Mike Braun.
Mhm.
And he stated that Senator Braun has an interest in helping us get this Army Corps report done. That he'd
Wow.
like the town to forward,
Great.
because all the stalling and stopping is just, it needs a little bit of a push from somebody that's got a voice in Washington.
Absolutely.
So Tony offered that help, and I could get Jill his
Yeah, if you
contact
would.
information.
That'd
And
be awesome.
Yep.
Great.
Real good.
That wraps up written communication, work session. Summerfest, is there any update?
Tourism,
From anybody?
tourism.
Tourism fund requests?
For those A, B, and C, I think that is.
Yeah, I believe Jill wanted us for Summerfest here, like Historical Association and also the Chamber, to take these requests under advisement for tonight. And she would like to get with Jen and review these. And then we'll have the agenda item on the March 19th meeting, just so everybody knows.
And I think that might be good, John, because in the past, we have such a small amount of that tourism money, but we've used other monies like town promotion and different things to help with the symphony. So we could probably come up with a combination of things to make sure that we're supporting those community events that really help to promote the community.
Fair enough. It'll be on the next month's agenda. And last, but not least, public comment.
No, we got the complete count committee.
I'm sorry, Bob Carnahan, could you please update us on the census count?
I would like for the town council to let me chair the 2020 town complete count committee for the United States Census. Just
I vote yes.
All in favor of Bob being the census guy?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Yeah.
Bob, you're the man.
Wear the hat, Bob. You're the guy.
But I just wanted, dating back to 2010 from the Post Tribune, Carrie Napoleon wrote, Cedar Lake, Indiana, Town Council member Robert Carnahan recently was chosen to represent the state of Indiana at the 2010 Census Advertising Campaign preview in Washington, D.C. Tony Pitchford, coordinator for the United States Census Government Partnership Division for Chicago region, which includes Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana, said she wants to select at least one representative from a community with less than 50,000 residents. She selected Carnahan and an individual from Illinois Governor's Office to represent her district. Pitchford said she chose Carnahan to represent Indiana because of his understanding of the importance of the census count and his efforts to ensure the community understands as well. And I'm going to be like a bad record, repeating myself, $8,260 was lost for every one citizen that we didn't get counted in 2010. And Jill calculated that one night when she was in here. She said with the 20% we lost $19 million over the 10-year period.
Yeah, and those are things like those federal projects that we get approved for.
Right.
That's that money. But Bob, I would say that this next year you'll be trading your Mr. Cedar Lake hat for a Mr. Census hat because we know
I have
that
a
you're,
passion for it.
yeah, we know you're going to do a great job with it, Bob, and there's nobody else here that could do near what you do with something like that. So I hope you get 100% reporting here in Cedar Lake.
I'm going to
Very
try.
good.
Do you have to work with somebody from the Illinois Governor's Office again? Or is that-
According to, I've made contact with the lady that's in charge, and it looks like to me they took us out of the Chicago district, and now we're connected. I talked to a lady, Mrs. McGee in Detroit, Michigan, and she's in charge of Indiana and Michigan. So I guess, I don't know why they pulled us out of the other one, or if we are pulled, but she's going to send a representative to the 16+ meeting on March 22nd at 9 a.m. in the town of Cherville. And so everybody that's interested in getting the complete count needs to attend that meeting and ask all kinds of questions.
Very good, thank you. Public comment, entertain public comment. Anybody want to come up? State the name and address of the record, please.
What is generated with your CCDF money on average per year? Right now, what are you generating? 5% on 100?
You know, without Jill being here, I don't know what that number is, but I don't
You have
think
it, Jen?
we had the CCD.
Not off the top of my head.
It's not 5 cents. It is not 5 cents. It shrinks annually.
Pardon?
It shrinks annually. which is why
It
it's being.
starts there and then it looks its way.
Yeah.
Currently, I can tell you what the current rate
That'd be
is.
good.
The current rate for 2019 is 0.0476.
But you know what that generates overall for.
I can pull you what we pulled in last year. I don't have that number in front of me currently.
I can get it tomorrow.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? Third and final call, public comment. Public comment is closed.
Our next meeting,
Next meeting, Tuesday, March 19th, 2019 at 7 PM. It too will be a public meeting work session. Oh, I'm sorry, that'll be followed up by a public meeting work session Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019.
and I like this new book the chief gave us.
Great book.
Yeah, Chief, thank you very much for the Clear Lake Metropolitan Police Annual Report. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you. What?
Hi there.
Yeah. We're heading it, we're going. I met with Terry Collins, and she wants to step up. I told her some of the problems, that she'd be happy to step up.
Okay, so
And be the president. of that.
And Mary Joan, I found one from 2016 online.
these are with Meredith.
2016, I've got, the levy was $251,217.
I'm sending you.
It's just something in that ballpark.
No, when,
Like I know the rest of the school.
Right.
After April.
All right, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. I prefer for it to be pushed off because the 21st is my second grader's spring concert.
Okay, well then we'll just, we'll push it back. I'm not exactly sure.
Let us know what you
But it'll help us
to make sure we're not.
the chef there is advertised, said that
But I
if we
think we're
can
gonna
give them
get started. I
at
talked to
least more
Terry.
than a 2-week notice, they can contact
What's
their
the weather
supervisors,
program a little bit?
stuff, and then they can spray heat for the nurse to put outside, things like that, is fine.
April 5th, April 27th or
A lot
something.
of publicity, things like that for free.
That's
And
cool.
we just have a little bit of time.
I wish I
But the one
could
thing
go
we'll have to
somebody
do
there.
is things like that every year called in-kind donations.
Okay.
I'll see, we'll see if maybe put something together between April 5th to
So
20th.
does fundraise or the donors themselves? Wanna be giving them?
If they donate it to Bugaboos, Bugaboos donates it to you, then Bugaboos. In-kind donation. Lots of little tricks.
Okay.
So we're working on
A drink.
Domestic bottle beer. And then if we
I understand.
willing to donate, you know, raffles and time and things like that. I
Okay.
can't- Obviously, so the first and last Sunday were my holiday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna.
Did that go up on the?
Tentatively,
Don't look that
it's
bad from the
21st,
road.
I'll try to push it.
Is that St. Joe's?
At least a week or two.
What a shame,
I
man.
don't think it's.
I'm sure it's,
Have to haul it out.
Yeah, because even just trying to
Yeah,
get the
and
logistics.
their
through,
endowment has
first
shrunk
came
so much
out
over
somewhere,
years that they
someone's
can't
gonna do it.
Yeah.
No, if you want this White House, no, I understand.
That's our original plan. So, yeah, I just wanna let you know that's kind of where.
Awesome. Thank you.
what a great university at this point. Yeah.
No, no. Those are the training agreements. So, do those.
Thank you. And then you needed this one.
I'll take those.
What's this, Greg?